In this video, I want to go through the second arrow parable from Buddhist teachings. So in this parable, a man is walking through the forest when unfortunately he's struck by a hunter's stray arrow. Now, when the man is struck by the arrow, predictably, he experiences a great deal of pain. He experiences shock. He starts to bleed. He clutches his arm. He says, "Ow, ow, ow." And this makes sense. If you are struck by an arrow, you're going to feel pain. And we also remember from Buddhist teachings that often, pain in life is inevitable. We can't go through life without feeling pain, without feeling suffering. And this is an example. A man walking through the forest, minding his own business, out comes a stray arrow and strikes him. However, as the man continues to stumble through the forest, feeling the pain, feeling the shock, feeling the bleeding under his fingers, his mind starts to whirl. He starts to think, what if this becomes infected? What if my shoulder is damaged and I'm not able to do my job properly? What if my family thinks poorly of me for not being mindful to my surroundings and thinks me careless for being hit by this stray arrow? What if the people at my job judge me harshly for sustaining this injury, for not recovering fast enough? Perhaps they will think me dirty if I develop an infection from this. And on the man's mind goes. He starts to feel shame. He starts to feel panic and worry. He may even start to feel a bit of anger that he was even in this situation in the first place. And as the parable often goes, as the teacher or the Buddha often says, now can you see where the man was struck with the second arrow that caused him equal amounts or even more amounts of pain and suffering than the first arrow? And this is where the phrase the second arrow comes from. Because again, in life, we cannot often avoid the first arrow. There will be pain, there will be suffering, there will be hardship that finds us. But are there things that we are doing to ourselves to cause ourselves to strike ourselves with the second arrow? And there are some common second arrows that can come up in the course of daily life. Things like anger, resentment, rumination and anxiety, hyperbole and shame. So to give you an example, anger often comes when boundaries are crossed. So someone does something, crosses a boundary, and you experience anger, a normal part of our daily lives. However, after the incident, does the anger return? Perhaps late at night when you're trying to sleep, perhaps on the drive back and forth to work, perhaps if somebody else does something, perhaps not to the same degree, but something that reminds you of the first incident, and then you feel anger, and then you feel more anger. The anger is the second arrow. With proper skills and training and awareness, we can be mindful to our anger. We cannot stop it altogether, but we can control it to a degree. The same comes with things like hyperbole. Think about making a mistake, perhaps messing up on an important presentation or saying something unkind to someone else. Many of us have a tendency then to think, oh no, I messed up this test, I'm horrible at math. Or, oh no, I always do this. Or, oh no, I'm no good at this. This may not necessarily be the case, but this is the second arrow with which we are striking ourselves and causing ourselves more pain and suffering than perhaps the initial incident would have done. So things to be mindful of when we're thinking about second arrows and looking for second arrows in our lives. As first, we often can't avoid the first arrow, right? Pain and suffering are going to find us in the course of our daily lives. We have to recognize this when it happens, and we have to see the situations for what they are. However, we then need to be mindful that we are not compounding the problem, that we're not contributing to our own pain and suffering, that we're not striking ourselves with the second arrow, the third arrow, the fourth arrow, that we're keeping the incidents contained, taking the pain and suffering as they come, but not expanding on the problem and not contributing to the problem.